my gosh, none of this makes sense. I'm just gonna look it up.
Hi, I'm Nick,
And I'm Waldo.
and today we're going to show you how to solve polynomials. So here you see is a perfectly nice, simple polynomial. First thing you want to do when you're solving these polynomials is look at your equation. In order to solve this here equation, we need to find the factors of this equation, okay? Now, we know that there will be 4 of these factors because it's a 4th degree equation. 4 degree. And that means there's 4 of them. So, in order to find these factors, we will first find the factors of our Q and our P in this equation, and that will go as follows. Our P term is a 2, so the factors are 1 and 2. Our Q term is in 1x, so there's 1. The P divided by the Q equals all the possible zeros of this here equation, and all of those are plus or minus.
So now we're going to find all the zeros of the equation. So I see right here, these are our possible list of zeros for our equation. 1 and 2. So we're going to use this equation and we're going to put it in synthetic division. So we're going to draw our L and we're going to plug these numbers in right here. So we're going to do 1 and 1, then -3, -1, and 2, okay? So we're going to start with 1 because that's in our possible list of zeros. So we're going to put 1 right here. So we're going to bring our 1 down and we're going to multiply 1 by 1, and that equals 1. So 1 plus 1 equals 2. Okay, 1 times 2 equals 2. So that equals subtract. So we're adding together, same thing. So that's going to equal -1. So 1 times -1 is -1, and that equals -2. So then 1 times -2, that's going to equal -2 right here, and that equals 0. So since that equals 0, that means that 1 is a 0 to our equation.
Now then, since we have found one of our zeros in our equation, 1, x equals 1, we will solve for our next 0. And in order to do that, we take these bottom numbers from our last problem and we plug them into the next problem. So we draw the L, get those 1, 2, -1, -2, and you plug in right here the next possible 0 that we think is the 0. So I'm just going to go out on a limb and say -2. So you bring this 1 down, you multiply these 2 here, that'll equal -2. You add these 2, 0. Multiply 0, add -1, multiply +2, add 0. And we found our second 0 for the equation, which is -2. So what this is basically telling you is that 1, x equals 1, since it's a 0, that means x minus 1 is a factor. And the same with this one, x equals -2, that means x plus 2 is also a factor. Now we know, as I said earlier, that this is a 4th degree polynomial, so there will be 4 different factors, and we have found 2 of those factors. Now what we're going to do is we're going to find the remaining factors. Now with x plus 2 and x minus 1, we have already taken those factors out of the equation. So what is left is this. And this is a second degree equation. And it drops down to x squared plus 0x, because it's a 0, minus 1. That's what we have left to work with, and that equals x squared minus 1. So that's our remaining factor. So now we've moved on to the next step, where we have our polynomial in fully factored form right here, and this would all multiply to equal this polynomial. So what we're going to do now is simplify it just a little bit more by rewriting x plus 2 and then rewriting x minus 1. Now this is not in the most simplified form. This will factor out to equal x plus 1, x minus 1. Now these are the 4 factors that come together to equal this one. X minus 1 is squared. We can bring those together. So we write it right as the zeros. It'll equal x minus 2, x equals plus 1 with a multiplicity of 2, and x equals negative 1. And those are our zeros. And now we will move on to the next step, where we graph this polynomial. Now we're going to graph this polynomial. We're going to do that right here. So we have all of our zeros right here. So x equals negative 2. Let's say this is negative 2. X equals plus 1. So plus 1. And x equals negative 1. Negative 1. So here's all our zeros. Now before we graph this, we need to find two of two things. We need to find the y-intercept. And the y-intercept is always the final term of this polynomial. So plus 2, positive 2. That is our y-intercept, which will be right here. So the next thing we need to do is find which direction our graph will go. And we will do that with the first term of this graph, the leading coefficient. So there's two things we have to look at for this number, and that is it positive or is it negative? And also, is the exponent even or is it odd? So it's positive, so that means that the equation graphed will go this way. And if it's even or odd, if it's even, they will go the same direction, and if it's odd,
then they will go in opposite
Now
directions.
then, we're gonna get to actually graphing it. So, as I said, it's positive and it's an even number. That means that the graph in behavior will be positive, and since it's even, they both are positive. They both now, since our x equals 1 has a multiplicity of 2, that means that the graph will just touch the x-axis but will not go through. However, x equals negative 1 will go through, as well as x equals negative 2. And that is how you graph it.
Oh, I get it now. Thanks, Nick and Waldo.
what to do. So we're going to put 1 right here, and we're going to bring down 1, all right? So 1 times 1, that equals 2. Or that's 0 equation. Okay,